to share the results of a study that she developed, she conceptualized, she sought funding and got, she put it all together, conducted the study, and now we have the great opportunity to see the results, the fruits of her labor. So please give a warm welcome to Lindsay.
We've all been there before, out and about in public running errands when suddenly we find ourselves in urgent need of a restroom. Stat. The race against the clock begins and we utter an urgent prayer. For half the population, reaching a restroom marks arrival at the finish line. For menstruators, however, where only half their toiletry needs are met, locating a loo means they're only halfway there and are still living on a prayer. Menstruation can begin as early as age 10 and can continue into a person's 50s. The average menstruator will navigate 33 years of menstrual cycles. Despite widespread awareness of periods and the obvious need for supplies, most public restrooms fail to provide this essential support. There is exactly one location where a person can tend to their period in public, behind the closed door of a restroom stall. Without access to pads and tampons, menstruators are forced to turn what should be a private toiletry matter into a public treasure hunt. The very existence of urinals is proof in our ability to recognize gendered restroom needs. Ironically, located adjacent to the toilet, you'll often find a small trash can for the discreet disposal of used period products. But me thinks this has more to do with protecting public plumbing than preserving the dignity of menstruators. This oversight represents institutionalized marginalization and oppression of menstruators. But there is hope. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be sharing the results from the Principled Innovation Research Project I titled A Stall for All. I'd like to introduce you to my research team members. My name is Lindsay Joy Smith. I'm an ASU MSW candidate, poised to graduate on May 13th, 2025. I've been asking Siri how many days for about 18 months. You met Dr. Matt Ignacio, who is a principal investigator in this research project, which was so lucky for me. He is an excellent mentor, a skilled teacher, an all-around high-quality individual, and a model social worker. I was very lucky to have him to work with. And then Jessica Langen-Peck, who helped me with some of the qualitative coding, and she met with me over winter break. So that was like very generous on her end. Okay, here we are, my research goals. What was the point of all this? I wanted to generate meaningful research to build the evidence base necessary for advocating a foundational shift that promotes change in support of menstruators. Now everybody say that 5 times fast. No, don't do that. Okay. Normalize the natural biological essential process that is menstruation. Affirm that pads and tampons are appropriate, healthy ways of caring for menstruation. Offer support in the appropriate space for period management, which is a restroom stall. And create innovation regarding access to supplies in southern Arizona. Okay, so specific research questions. What was I trying to figure out? How do menstruators experience public restrooms? Is it effective to provide free period products in the restroom stalls where they're used? And what are the impacts of providing period products in restroom stalls? The good news is I found answers to each of those questions. So, research methods. This is how I went about doing this research. Temporarily install menstrual hygiene dispensers located next to the lunch you just grabbed. Is the dispenser. With pads and tampons in 14 publicly accessible restroom stalls at the Valdez Library. Tracked data over 10 weeks, refilled the dispensers on Wednesdays. Displayed a flyer in bathroom stall to solicit participation in a survey and patron interviews. then conducted 4 patron interviews regarding menstruation in public spaces. Then I conducted 2 staff interviews regarding the impact of a stall for all. Okay, here we are. Okay, budget. The Principled Innovation Grant that I applied for tapped out at $5K. So here we are. The dispensers ended up costing a little bit more. This is the proposed budget, so the cookie didn't crumble exactly how you see it. But the dispensers cost $85, about $14, so about $1,200 for the dispensers. Then all the other expenses, but this is the one I was pretty excited about that you're here. Luncheon lecture to advance medical innovation at ASU. That is what you're all eating right now. Isn't that lucky? Okay, so we're gonna go over data collection in 3 separate areas. The first is product usage, the second is patron surveys, and the third are the interviews. Okay, here we are. This is what the library looks like from the front. There it is. This is where it is in the city of Tucson. And the study itself ran specifically from August 28th to November 6th. Ironically, this is an anniversary of when I started my first period. Couldn't have planned it, but it's legit. That's the truth. Okay, I do know the date because it was an event. Okay, library floor plans. You can't pull them off the internet. Like something about safety, it was just really difficult. So no floor plans for you. Know this, 14 stalls, 2 of them were located right outside the children's area, 2 more on the main floor. Those are all main floors, the first 4. The next 5 were the second floor, and the last 5 were on the third floor. Here we are, okay, dispenser. I decided it'd be much faster to install if they were pre-filled. This is my junior citizen, Norman Harold Thomas Smith, literally his actual name. And we filled the dispensers together. Then me and Dr. Ignacio went to the library, pre-filled, and hung up the dispensers and posters. So here we are, product usage, the data. This is done by the weeks. So you can see week 5 had a dip in product usage. So this is pads and tampons combined for a total in all 14 dispensers held 250 products, 8 pads, 17 tampons. So we never topped out with all the dispensers being completely, all the products being used. And then we had a low point in week 5. Now this is by the stall, and I found this interesting. So these 2, stalls 3 and 4, their product was used every single time. Every time I went, in every week of the study, the dispensers were completely empty. Those are the 2 most accessible stalls in the library. It's where the people, if you are running into the library because you got to go, that's where you're headed. Closest, easiest ones to find. And so there we have that, okay. Now, 14 stalls visited for 10 weeks means that I made 140 visits to stalls. This shows that only 9 of those visits, no product had been taken, which means menstruators were accessing product in stalls 93.6% of the time, and many of you are students, and that is a very good grade, okay? So, overall, in the course of the study, 666 pads were used, 1,236 tampons were used, which meant that 1,902 times menstrual emergencies were averted. Okay, very exciting. This actually means about half of the pads that were available in the study were used, and about half of the pads, the tampons were used as well. That will matter in a moment. Okay, next section, the patron surveys. So, posters, which I had so much fun making, were hung inside every single stall. They all had a catch line at the top that was literary themed. One of my favorites. Say it out loud. Menstrual cycle. And in fact, we got enough surveys in the course of the first 4 weeks that I wasn't able to use the final 6 posters that I had made. So that was kind of unfortunate. But around week 4, we were looking for between 100 and 120 surveys. We capped it at 110 because then the bots got involved. It's a kind of bummer, but that's what it looked like. Okay, to participate in the survey, there were some qualifying criteria, inclusion criteria. You had to identify as female and or someone who is or has been a menstruator. English speaking, 18 years of age or older, and had to have access to restrooms at the library because that's the only way that they could find the QR code. Okay, next, recruitment. That was done by flyers that were placed in the restroom stalls, and the survey was accessed by either a QR code or they had the option of requesting access by email to the research team. That would be me, and nobody took advantage of that option. So it was available to people, but nobody got in on that. Okay, the survey procedures. People accessed the survey online. They answered qualifying questions. If they said yes to that, then they were kicked over to the next part, which was 13 Likert skill questions. That is the always, sometimes, never, rarely. I'm not going over it properly, but you get my drift. Okay. Then there were 3 open-ended questions that they could answer. Then they submitted their surveys. Once that was kicked off, they were sent to a separate screen because we didn't want to have their responses identified with any one individual, but it was extremely important to me, and I'm encouraged by Dr. Ignacio, that all participants be compensated. It is so frequent that those who are oppressed, they get taken advantage of for information, I guess you could say. And so it's important to me. This survey could not have taken more than 10 minutes, and they received $10 gift card that was sent to them. It's a Tango gift card. You can use it at Walmart, you can use it at Amazon, lots of places you can use it. Okay. And then they had the option to indicate an interest in an interview participation, and the interview was slated to take about 15 minutes to half an hour. Supposed to meet at the library, and then they'd be compensated for their time as well. Okay, so of the quantitative survey results, 79.1% were aged 18 to 39. 70.9% menstruated in the last month. 90.9% used pads and or tampons to manage their periods. 80% have had to urgently hunt for period products when away from home. 80.9% indicated public restrooms never or rarely supply necessary period products. Totally egregious. And 41.8% used the available period products of the library, which means we got a lot of people that responded that weren't experiencing a menstrual cycle in that moment. Okay. All right, question 13. The toiletry needs of menstruators should be met in public restrooms. This was the question that got the single highest response from those surveyed, with a 5 strongly agree at 81.8%. That's what that looks like in a bar graph. Okay, now to the qualitative survey themes. Qualitative is when you get to narrate, answer, choose your own adventure kind of a question. And we had 3 of those. These are listed in order of the highest responses with any given question. So question 14, what are the benefits of providing free pads and tampons? The top answer to that question was access. Increased access, increased availability, and accessibility to those who may need it. Second top highest answer was equity. It's a necessary resource that, if provided in public restrooms, would allow all menstruating people equal access to period products. And then the third most commonly response to this question was it improves the health and also the psychological safety of menstruating people. This is so real. It's embarrassing when you have an accident. Okay, question 15, it's only in a different color to make it easier to read. There you go. Okay, why aren't free pads and tampons oh, I did that wrong. Okay, I'll fix that later. Okay, why aren't free pads and tampons commonly provided? First, top answer was expense. People always want to make money off anything they can. Cost or corporate greed. Second top answer was misogyny, non-menstruating men making the decisions, and discrimination against women. And this one I found the most interesting of these answers. The third most common response was theft, because some patrons abuse this luxury. It's so luxurious. I went to the bathroom, there's toilet paper in there. There's also soap. And then I was able to dry my hands. It's wild to me that we would list that as a luxury. Okay, and then this one just like rage. Okay, due to the stealing of women, this idea that people, menstruators, are not given what they need because they can't be trusted to take care of what they need. Think that over. Get mad with me. Okay. Question 16, what does a stall for all mean to you? Support, inclusion, and access. I think this is a wonderful project and it will benefit many women, especially in emergency situations. Number 2, inclusion. To me, that means access to restrooms regardless of how one identifies regarding gender. And the 3rd, access, came up twice. It's interesting that a stall should be equipped with the needs of restroom-related things. True that. Okay, the 3rd area of data collection was with the interviews. 2 different kinds of interviews, patron interviews and staff interviews. Okay, the inclusion procedures were pretty much identical, except the last one we added, you have to be able to attend an in-person interview at the library. Recruitment was done through the surveys and the interview procedures. Volunteers met in a private room in the library. Participation consent forms were read out loud, patron questions were answered, and the form was signed. The interview commenced and was recorded with the option for people to say, I don't want this interview anymore, like, I'm done. Nobody did that, by the way. And then the participants were compensated $45 via the e-gift card for their time. Literally, after the interview, I shut it down, then we hovered over my computer and I processed their gift card so they didn't have to wait. Okay, patron interview themes, back to the access. It's a thing. And this I thought was so raw. I'm gonna read it. Access theme 1. Oh yeah, well, in the stall, that's a lot better too, because then, you don't have to, like, if you're like, oh my God, I started my period, at least you could reach over with the toilet paper and it's right there. Instead of having to, like, wipe yourself, and even just a little bit of toilet paper for that time being, just to get out and go grab it from, like, the counter or the dispenser and then go back in the restroom, So it's a lot better to have it right where it's used. Yes, it is. Okay. Theme 2, expense. People don't think about when you have an accident, you bleed out. You have to go out and you have to go do laundry. You have to spend money to go wash and all that. And then on top of that, like I said, if you're a heavy bleeder like me, it's going to cost you about $30 to $40 a month. So that would help a lot with expenses being accident-free. And then the dispensers, you have to pay for them. And then sometimes they don't even have them. They're not even stocked. So kind of like, sucks. And it does. Okay, and then theme 3, menstrual emergency. It's kind of hard because some days I bleed a lot more than others, and sometimes what I have isn't enough. So I'd have to run to the nearest location near me, and normally they don't have period pads or tampons or anything, so I'd resort to toilet paper or paper towels. Next comment, it definitely comes in handy not having to freak out or having to try to find the nearest store, and sometimes paying an arm and a leg for just products that you wouldn't normally use. So these were our patron interview themes. And we had our staff interview themes, which was just the patron impact and the library impact. Patron impact, somebody said thank you because they made it easier for them to obtain the products. Sometimes when the reference desk is staffed by male staff, they, the patrons, don't necessarily feel too comfortable asking the male staff member for those products. And to help my audience, wrap your hearts and minds around this, if non-menstruators had to go to the information booth and talk to someone every time they need to maybe use the toilet paper and they forgot their toilet paper in their Merce, in their truck, it would be like that, okay? Not cool. Okay, library impact. Your research project, A Stall for All, did exactly that in matching the mission statement because it provided more ability for people who are impoverished, underserved, and don't have the available resources to be able to take care of their menstrual cycle. And you were able to provide those products for them. Okay, continuing. Some study limitations, some things that I wish that I could have changed or that I do differently next time. So the study was conducted in exactly one location. So this is a place-based research project that might struggle to be transferred into other locations. Okay, the library restricted access to its 3rd floor in week 6, which affected the restroom access and product usage data. So from week 6 and on, when I went up to the 3rd floor, minimal product was taken as compared to the first 5 weeks because the library was understaffed, and in response, they let you go up to that floor, but removed all seating options. So all of the chairs were gone. It was like, what happened here? And hardly anyone was hanging out. So that affected the data. Only 6 interviews were conducted, so it's not a huge amount of interviews. The posters, survey, and interviews were conducted solely in English. Porque no hablo mucho español. Lo siento. Okay, and then access to a smartphone, email, and internet were necessary to participate. Okay, so the answers. How do menstruators experience public restrooms? Public restrooms are frequently inadequate for menstruators. Is it effective to provide free period products in the restroom stalls where they're used? Providing free period products in restroom stalls is effective for menstruators and was problem-free for the library. And I want to highlight their willingness to participate. Pima County Public Library was all over this. They were very generous with their time and effort and energy. However, most public restrooms don't have a pad tampon ferry that shows up hauling a cart of pads and tampons and fills the dispensers and makes sure that machine is going. And I was finally brave enough to return to the library. They did elect to keep the dispensers and to keep them up. But in the 14 stalls, there was only 1 dispenser that had 4 tampons in them. So according to my data, they're not refilling them the way that they could be. Okay, and then the last question, what are the impacts of providing period products in restroom stalls? Increased access, equity, and dignity for menstruators. What does this all boil down to? The implications. These findings suggest a long-standing institutionalized marginalization of menstruators in public restrooms and an urgent and overdue need for increased access to period products in public restrooms. Okay, and I'm not a liar, there actually is hope. Kind of a downer up until this point. Okay, all right, so let's get some good news. 28 states and DC have passed laws to provide free menstrual products in schools, which is saying something. We like that idea, but as we all know, people continue to menstruate once they hit 18. It continues for potentially 2-3 more decades. All right, sorry, I'm keeping it hopeful, Okay, 25 states have laws requiring free period products for incarcerated women. How do you make incarceration worse? Not have access to what you need when it's your time of the month. Okay, 3 states require pads and tampons to be available at no cost in homeless shelters. And right now, the Menstrual Equity Act for All, Act of 2023, HR 3646, touches on each of these things: the schools, the incarcerated women, the homeless shelters, the ability to use Medicaid, Medicare for these products. So that's coming, so fingers crossed that will happen. But I really, really, really wanted to highlight that there is, and has always been, a hidden and visible network of support for menstruators. I don't know how many times I've been asked when in a public restroom, somebody's saying, hey, I just started my periods, anybody have pads or tampons? And some generous soul says, oh yeah, I've got an extra right here, here you go. And I've been the beneficiary of that and have supplied that as well. And if any of you need to use the loo here on campus, you will notice in every single restroom, you have access to what you need in the toilet. There are free pads and tampons, and one of the limitations not listed, but that I was a little bit frustrated with, I didn't have the budget to put dispensers in every stall, but it's located in the men's restroom as well, because we don't know, I don't care what goes on behind the closed door of a restroom stall, but I do believe that everyone should have access to what they need. Okay. So now what can you do? What do you do with this information? This is not part of the study, this is just Lindsay Joyce Smith good ideas. Okay, number 1, stock your bathroom with period products. When my sons went off for college, I got to take them for the grocery run of like, okay, beans and rice and pasta, and we went and bought some toiletry products. And I said, oh, we gotta go get pads and tampons. And they both at first were like, hey, well, what are we talking about here? And I said, oh, sorry, like, are you planning on having menstruators in your apartments? And then they laughed a little. I'm like, that's right. I said, I think you should be just as embarrassed if somebody were to come over and you didn't have toilet paper for your guests as if you didn't have pads or tampons. If you're expecting people to be able to use your restroom, it should be provided with things that they need. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, patron places that support menstruators. And this could be a work in progress. I work out at Choose Gym. Yay! I do it for the sauna. That's it. I just do it for the sauna. But I went after Q&Aing with one of the managers. They said that a couple years ago, they took out the feminine hygiene dispenser so they could put in a much fancier dispenser where you can purchase like workout gloves and earbuds and deodorant, and they don't have feminine hygiene products in this fancy dispenser. Wild to me. So I am in the process of gently encouraging, hey, what can we do? I love this gym, this is where I want to be, but guess what? It's inadequate. Do you allow people to sign up to become members of your gym that are menstruators? And if you do, and if you provide access to a restroom, then they should have what they need. Okay, and then the last suggestion is to vote for policies and people that support period progress. Boom! Okay, I did it! Thank you all so much! Okay, I've got about 10 minutes for questions if anyone has some questions. Yes?
When they talk about these in schools, one of the things they talk about is that students that cannot access this at home for whatever reason can always grab a few and take them with them. And so was there any way you had of tracking people that weren't using them right away but keeping them for later?
No, I didn't. That's a good question. I didn't have, I wasn't aware, there was no mechanism for me to say, tick this box if you're using it today, or tick this box if you're using it later. However, the question points to something that I was fascinated by. I was curious to see if every dispenser would have all of the product completely gone at the end of each week. And that didn't happen. And I can't remember the name of the author, but she wrote the book, Braiding Sweetgrass, and she is a PhD in biology, and she talked about the Native American gift economy, and it's when something is offered freely as opposed to being exchanged for money. People tend to take it with more respect and with more reverence, and I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened in the dispensers. Is someone might have needed it right there. They might have known that they're running somewhere, and so maybe they grabbed a pad for later or a tampon for later. But I think because they're freely available, you don't feel that need to hoard, and you're not in a panic mode. If this were available at every public restroom, no one would feel inclined to take way more than they need. In the same way that when we use the restrooms, we're often not like trying to roll up all the toilet paper or trying to take all the toilet paper, because we know the next time we go to a public restroom, unless it's like, location, they're gonna have toilet paper. Okay, I've got 2 more minutes, so maybe one more question. If anybody has like a burning question. Yeah, Javi.
It's not really a question, but I know you made a lot of jokes, but I just want to appreciate all the effort you made and all the effort you put in every week, and just showing up and like even coming here and advocating and practicing, and just like the time that you put into it, just like it's that small ripple effect that like it's a small ripple now, but just you never know the lasting impact that you can have. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This passion, this odd passion for restroom equity was fostered at ASU from the beginning. It started with me talking with Heather Vocal about how going on our Borderlands trip and taking advantage of that opportunity and talking with her about the needs of the people along the border that are destitute. They need pads and tampons. Okay, we did a drive. One of the teachers said, hey, well, I'll give you extra credit if you bring pads and tampons to this. And so that started. Then she agreed to put dispensers in the restrooms. And then I took a macro class with Diana, and she let me just choose this as the topic of what I wanted to write about on the national level, and how menstrual equity is shaping out across the United States and globally. And then Dr. Ignacio was like, yeah, let's do this thing. He met with me, and I pitched this crazy idea, and he asked lots of questions, remained very curious, and said, yeah, we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna support you. And I did have that support, which brings me to the last slide. I wanna say thank you once again to Dr. Ignacio for all of his mentorship and support. Thanks to Jessica Langen-Peck, who did the coding with me. Thank you for the ASU Principal Innovation Grant that came across my Sonia account, actually. Hey, you wanted this grant? I'm like, sure I do. Yeah, I do. Pima County Library, their willingness to participate. All of the library patrons that checked product because they needed it or participated in surveys, the library staff. Oh, by the way, those were selected purposefully. The library said, here, interview these people, so it wasn't random. The ASU professors, of which I just mentioned, and some that weren't mentioned. Ward 2 in the city of Tucson, that's a capital I, okay. In the city of Tucson, if you hit the Ward 2 building, they have dispensers in every stall because of the advocacy work of the supervisor I worked with here at my last year's internship, Chris Desborough, and he is a disability advocate specialist, and he also mentored and fostered my menstrual equity advocacy. And Jewish Family and Children's Services, who I'm interning with right now, and then family and friends who have heard me give that 3-minute speech that I gave at the beginning just to make sure I had it down. My 10-year-old, right before I left this morning, is like, Mom, do you want to go over it just one more time? And the fact that I have a 10-year-old son that's like, I really want to hear your speech, says there is hope for the future. We are on the right track. Thank you so much.